Man molested me for the first time that I remember when I was 7 years old. I talk about violence, so please take care of yourselves, by the way. He felt entitled to my small body, and as he assaulted me, one of my loose teeth in my mouth wiggled. I say remember because our brains are supremely fabulous organisms, and we are able to conceal from our conscious minds that which is unendurable. A man tried to drag me from an aisle in a Kmart when I was in the 8th grade. I had on my green and gold cheerleading uniform. For what nefarious purpose, I know not, but I managed to struggle and get away from him. I say I don't remember that one. He is still a registered sex offender in Rutherford County, Tennessee, from the last I hear from his daughter. When I was 14, it was organized for me by a modeling agency here in New York to go to Tokyo to work for the summer as an unescorted minor. On my first day at the modeling agency, I was told by the adults to take off all my clothes and walk around in my kitty underpants and little bra. And that summer was, in fact, one of commercial sexual exploitation where men of all kinds consumed my adolescent body, ranging from the agency head who molested me to 2 rapes and so on and so on and so on. Children are not for sex, and women's vaginas should not be sites of violence. In every circle of women with whom I've ever sat around the world, nearly all of us have experienced male entitlement to our bodies in some form, the covert small humiliations and grave bodily damage. On the set of a film I just made, the young woman said to me, oh, as if it were her inevitable possession and rite of passage, my rape was at 12. And coincidentally, 12 to 15 is the age of entry into prostitution in the United States. And to be clear, there is no such thing as a child prostitute. They are survivors of commercial sexual violence, and it is serial body invasion and paid rape. This should not be controversial, although at times it is, because the vagina, the mouth, and the anus are not workplaces, and capitalism does not reach to our orifices. And normalizing the male purchase of bodies, who are often the most vulnerable among us, pushed into motel rooms and cars by intersecting oppressions, especially for Black trans women, is what sex buying teaches. Decriminalize all folks trapped in the sex trade and hold accountable sex buyers, pimping, and brothel keeping. I'd love to talk about that more at another time. The ubiquity and pervasiveness of male sexual violence constrains our world in every frontier of human development and in every sector of economic and geopolitical progress. Peace and security are simply impossible with this violence, and as is its inverse, gender equity. And what does this harm look like? It looks like my sisters in Madagascar pooling their meager resources to buy empty sacks of rice to string up to make provisional tents under which they lay their bodies down on sidewalks while their husbands pimp them holding their infants. And scant money changes hands for this pain. It looks like the documented explosion of men's use of pornography during the global pandemic lockdown. And in a recently published rigorous study, 1/3 of all college women responded that a man had choked them in their last sexual encounter, not over their sexual careers in college, but in their last encounter. And of course, choking is de rigueur in pornography. And in the intimate partner violence assessment, it is the last move before homicide. It looks like my chosen niece, while I was trying to watch Kentucky basketball, bringing up pornography and how the boys in school insist that her peers at the age of 14 perform the sex acts they've learned in violent, racist, and misogynistic pornography. Older women are abused too. In the Luvungi rapes in the DRC, as armed militia raided a village, a woman cried, "You are my grandson, get off of me." What is the solution? Ending male entitlement to female bodies. It is that simple, and it is that complex. And I love you, men, and I am with you, and you have to change. And you have to be supported and understood and incentivized as you do so. The ecosystems that enable this behavior must be dismantled, whether it's the, so more subtle, like girls not having bathrooms, so when they start their periods, they drop out of schools and can't access education, which we all know is a catapult to female empowerment. And the puzzling, yet seemingly universal report that when girls and women go to latrines in IDP and refugee camps, men assault them. I don't know what that's about. The apologists and those who double down on excuses and victim blaming must now be those who disrupt and hold their peers accountable. And we must learn the science behind tonic immobility and normalize that when being attacked, a body can go limp and become compliant to save itself. It is dismantling the naturalistic fallacy and following the hard science, which a naturalistic fallacy erroneously posits that because something is, it ought to be. Let's look to our closest living relatives, the bonobos. When they look at us, they see a closer relative than a gorilla. They are male-free, male sexual coercion-free, and free from male dominance. If a female is solicited for a copulation and she denies, she is not retaliated against. Females have reproductive autonomy. And they show that male dominance and male sexual coercion is not evolutionarily inevitable. And still some say boys will be boys, but we say here today that we love them and they will be held accountable for their actions, their attitudes, their sins of omission. And frankly, I'm fed up with the emphasis being on building resilience in girls and women because we got to look upstream and see from whence this need for resilience comes. Now, it seems like you're with me, but I kind of assumed this is the part where I've lost everybody and the media calls me a man-hater, and of course my social media goes bananas with rape and death threats. I'm used to that. And this will be what it will be because we're here to tell the truth. This is telling truth to patriarchy, just like when I lost a big job after the Women's March. I quoted the president. He said it. He got elected. I quoted him. I got fired and lost income that would have changed my life. Male sexual violence is the up with which we will not put, and for me, it's just the hill on which I'm willing to die. I've seen too much agony, too many shattered souls, and too many women controlled and held back. As farmers, as civil servants, as contributors to their community, because they couldn't plan and space the births of their children, because when they introduce family planning, they get beaten. Or used for household labor and fetching water and cooking and cleaning while their sons eat more than they do. Where's the hope? With Jackson Katz, who's here and speaking to you after I, and with men like him, who use evidence-based strategies to help men change their behavior and become upstanders instead of bystanders. It is with grassroots NGOs that help train women to run for office all over the world, and the hope is women's collectives like Apne App Worldwide, which is based on Gandhian principles and allows girls and women to access their natural inner self-efficacy and agency, to exit intergenerational prostitution. And I've been in the brothels in Bihar and in Calcutta and Mumbai and Delhi and seen women who exited, but their homes were burned down by their male relatives because they still wanted to sell them. But they got out because they know this is the freedom struggle for which we are willing to risk everything. Hope is ni una menos, Hope is ni una menos. The radical feminist movement in Argentina that is spreading to Chile and the whole area, which decries with ferocity and passion that a woman is murdered every 32 hours in Argentina and 800,000 in the area are dead as a result of femicide. In closing, let's go to Zatari refugee camp in Jordan, where a beautiful 12-year-old Syrian refugee has asked me to braid her hair, which lacks luster from the hardship of her life and malnutrition. She's already been used by men as a commodity for sex, and she jumped off a balcony because she could no longer endure what was being done to her small body. Both her legs broke. But she reached to me, held my hands, and struggled to stand up to show me that she could stand on her own 2 feet. And that is what we are here to do, to tell the truth like she was telling the truth and to stand. So join her and me in telling the truth about male sexual violence. Tell it in your workplaces, tell it on the streets, tell it in public transportation, tell it in your bedrooms. Thank you. Peace be with you.